I would love to start my introduction. Mattie's love of the earth goes back to her childhood. As a toddler, she would explore the great outdoors, catching insects to study and nibbling on her father's plants. When she wasn't exploring, she was reading. I can picture Mattie filling her backpack with a pile of books, finding a big tree in the woods, leaning on it, and getting lost in a story. As she grew older, her interest in plants grew also. She attended herbal festivals with her father and met some wonderful teachers like Rosemary Gladstar and Stephen Foster. She still keeps in touch with these mentors and still attends herbal festivals with her grandmother. Now, listen to this. At 9 years old, she did a presentation in front of a bunch of people about what she was growing in her garden. But Mattie's love of books also deepened. When she moved to Norfolk, she would often be found in the children's room, navigating the shelves and checking out batches of books. She spent so much time at the library that I ended up giving her a volunteer job as my helper. That job evolved into a real position as library intern, where Mattie, with her radiant smile, can be seen perched at the circ desk, assisting patrons finding the perfect item. Mattie is now a senior at the Rudolph Steiner High School, and she will be attending Vassar in the fall. Blending her deep appreciation of reading and writing and nature, Mattie has created a lovely book of poetry and photographs, A Place of In-Betweens. We are so proud of you, and we'd like to welcome you, Mattie.
Thank you so much, Miss Eileen. So I'm Mattie. I'm 18 years old, and I go, as Miss Eileen said, to the Berkshire Waldorf High School, and I'm going to Vassar next year. And I'm planning to double major in environmental science and creative writing. And within those, I want to focus on botany and poetry. I first started working on my book, A Place of In-Betweens, last spring at the beginning of the pandemic. We drove down to Arkansas and stayed isolated in a cabin on my grandparents' farmland. And because I was surrounded by so much nature and really not seeing anyone else, I decided to start writing and photographing what was around me. And then I compiled it into a collection. And then I continued working on this when I got home. And when we got home from Arkansas last spring, Connecticut was farther back in the season of spring. So I basically got to have 2 springs last year. So I continued writing when I got home. And then I continued working on it all of last year and completed it last winter. So I think I'll start with the first poem that's in the book, and it's called Lepidoptera. Floating on soft drafts from east wind. Oh, I just realized I forgot to share my screen, so I'm going to do that. I'm sorry. There. So this is the cover I created for my book, and I collaged it out of National Geographic magazines, which I thought was fitting. Okay, now I'll start. This is called Lepidoptera, which is the scientific name for butterflies. Floating on soft drafts from east winds, delicate wings, translucence, pigments, pure obscene of the Anthropocene. Living in a crumbling, decaying world they had no part in causing, blissfully unaware. Or maybe they are all too aware. Calm flapping, contrasting the coming future as they drift, then sink into the rising sea. When I wrote this poem, I wanted to capture the simple, calm image of the butterfly and then contrast it with the coming of climate change and sea level rise, and just bring attention to the small things that could be lost. The next poem I'm going to read is inspired by my fascination with benthic macroinvertebrates, which are basically the larvae of insects that live on a stream's bottom. So you can find them under rocks or under pieces of wood that are in the creek. And depending on which types you find there, you can determine a stream's water quality. So, for example, these are water pennies, and they're only found in really unpolluted waters, so it'd have to be clean water for them to survive. And then other examples are mayfly larvae, damselfly larvae, crayfish. So this poem is called Under a Rippling Microscope. I slide off my red high-top Converse, then my socks, and roll up my baggy jeans to mid-calf. I dip my toes into the stream, the rocks tickling my soles. I tread lightly so that I don't disturb the nearby spring peepers basking on the bank and the whirligig circling in the rushing water. Bending to touch an algae-coated rock, I brush my fingertips across it and pick it up, rocking it back and forth in my palm. There are so many creatures, often unnoticed, that live on a mysterious ecosystem on a stream's watery bed. We only focus on life's final stage and don't fully grasp what came before. The dragonflies which dot the sky in their bright swarms, shimmering wings like window panes against the sun. They come from larvae, small macroinvertebrates that live on a river's bottom. I sometimes wish that I could live there too, breathing in the water, swimming freely. Maybe I would be a crawdad, with small snapping pincers and rosy skin, easily escaping with the flash of its tail. The next poem I'm going to read is titled Your Love, and I first wrote this poem while I was at a writing workshop at the University of Virginia. And I was given the prompt to write a sort of warped love poem. And as I was thinking, I couldn't think of a relationship that's more complicated and really warped than that between humanity and the earth. So I wrote this poem and tried to personify Earth and see not if I could write from her perspective, but if I could just bring some sort of person into her perspective, if that makes sense. This is called Your Love. My love, we were thriving, content, joyous, safe. Why did that change? I have surrounded you, embraced you, still embracing you. In return, I'm given toxins, your bitter words. Your passionate fires scar my skin, leaving what once was vibrant, now barren, claimed as your own. I smolder, watching plumes of smoke trace across the sky, waiting for you to remember me. My love, give me a sea burial, when there's no land left in sight to be my port, my haven, and my anchors disappear to murky depths. I was a land for you to inhabit. Now you say I'm your land. My body, engulfed by your words of anger piercing my core. I've forgotten how to breathe, now that the air around me has been filled with poisons. My love, leave your spite, your greed, and remember what we had. Remember before the rivers ran dark with oil, the rain acidic with all the tears I've cried at your betrayal. Don't blame me for what you've done, or what you haven't done. Because when I'm faded beyond recovery and lying in my grave, burnt sticks around me and floral bouquets, That's the point you'll realize what you did to me. My love, this is just a slow dance of decay. Don't apologize. It's too late for that. But try to fix your actions. Heal the wounds, leave the scars as I'm hurt, scared, but still alive with a small bit of hope. My love, if you love me, clear my lungs, drain the seas, wipe the tears from my cheeks, clean up this mess that you've made. I beg you. Before you continue and bring the pain upon yourself and I'm left alone to bury you. Your love, Earth. This poem was selected to be presented at the Berkshire Museum's Climate Expo last November, and I made it into an art piece for that, which is shown here. My next poem is inspired by my little brother and his connection to nature that has always been an inspiration to me. He's often in our woods, in a tree, under a tree, like everywhere in nature. And so I decided to write a poem for him. And I had him proofread it to make sure it was accurate right after I wrote it. So this is called Forest Child. He is a wild boy, his clothes kicked in mud no matter the season. What's the point of washing them if they will look the same tomorrow? He strips off his shoes as soon as he can, often forgetting where he last left them. He'd rather feel the dew-sparkled grass beneath his feet or be splashing in the nearby creek bed than be trapped between rubber and laces. He walks, toes coming down first, rolling across his arch, landing on his heel, quietly crinkling the leaves. Observing what's around him, the garter snake coiled behind a log awaiting its prey, the praying mantis camouflaging against a soft bed of moss. He is content. A nest of silkworms coats the front of his shirt, crawling up toward his face. He dashes down the trodden path. At a deep turquoise waterhole, he tries to cup an unsuspecting fish in his hands as it slips through his fingers. Pulling off his shirt, he trips and falls in, joining the fish in a swim through the cold spring. He walks through the woods, eating boysenberries in summer, and making tea from maple sap when spring begins to near. Black birch fills his mouth with a licorice taste. He licks ants from his skin as they crawl up his arms, touching his tongue with a crunchy, zesty twang. Should we make him wear his shoes on the right feet, or have him wear them at all? Try to tame down his wandering hair and scrub the mud and grass stains from his corduroys? Or could we leave something that's happy and wild, content to be who they are, to be free? As I mentioned in the intro, when we came back from Arkansas, I basically got to have a second spring. So I wrote this poem in the sestina format, which I felt represented the circling and cycling of spring and just the cycles of new life and awakening that it brings. So this is called Chorus of Spring. You'd think that the rain's tapping would soon cease, though these are the early showers and droplets of spring. Grumbles come from a wall of deepening clouds, and yellow webs, warning signs, fill the crying skies, like faults in the earth's core, resounding, waiting for answers. Echoes skip along lush river valleys, questions waiting for answers. Eventually sound collapses as motion seems to cease. Perhaps the last breath remains in a peach's core, the juice running down chins in an orange, rippling spring. The round fruit, a deep glowing orb in summer skies. It is only in the wisp of leftover clouds. Gathering mint dotted with morning dew under purple-hued clouds brings memories, questions from childhood that now have answers. Maybe I still long to be that child, prancing beneath raindrop skies. But rain and wishes fall, then cease. I still skip, delighted, catching leopard frogs in the spring. Maybe everyone can still be a child at their core. I missed the tool that sliced apples and removed the core. That was when I was living beneath sweaty, humid clouds, raising lettuces and herbs in my gardens all spring. Now I've gone back there, turning to my kale sprouts for answers. I hope my amazement at that budding growth will never cease, even when trapped under snowy skies. I feel at home when I look up and maples coat the skies. Perhaps that sense of familiarity is ingrained at our very core. At doors closed to cricket and birdsong, the call will not cease. In summer, I am not bothered by patches of clouds. The south is where people pray, sweat dripping down their brows. The clouds are the answers. I'm back north, and it seems I get to relive this year's spring. Not that I mind. How could anyone not want to splash again in spring? To look up and be met not with gray but with seas of bluebird skies. To know that the flowers lifting their heads, not you, have the answers. To build fruit, pollen lands and flowers, connecting to the core. Sometimes carried on the backs of wind on days of clouds. Sometimes brought by bees, bats, knowing that their working cannot cease. May, spring well on its way, lime green and preparation at its core. Sunset skies enter at night, dappled by the pastels of clouds. Maybe there never will be answers to our questions that never cease. As Miss Eileen mentioned earlier, I'm from Arkansas, and I often like to recall images of Arkansas and my childhood in my poetry. So I wrote that one as sort of an ode to spring as well as childhood. And the theme that everything is always changing, transforming, and growing, which I feel like spring is symbolic of. I'm going to read one more poem, and it's titled Starprint. It's the last poem in my book as well. And I thought this picture showed the peach in the sky that I mentioned in the last poem pretty well. Starprint. 1. I dip my bare feet in a creek to catch a sprig of watercress in my toes and hold it upstream, straining against the current. Rocks beneath my feet shift slightly under my weight as the water sways me to its rhythm. Stepping carefully, I feel as they press into my skin, leaving imprints of the solid forms I'm leaving behind as I step onto grass of the creek bed. 2. If you're standing at the bottom of a canyon, can other people at the other end hear your echo? When you yell, your lungs filling with the dust of all the cluttered words you wish you had said and release them, giving them away to the nitrogen and oxygen molecules to carry far past the troposphere, through the stratosphere. Does anyone really hear you? Maybe no one can, unless they know what they're listening for before the sound waves hit their ears. 3. When animals leave tracks in the snow, a rabbit fleeing from a hungry coyote, a group of deer feeding in the forest, a squirrel running toward its tree, they tell a story. What do our footprints tell? That we were there, tromping across white snow, leaving mud, ruin, decay in our wake. How do rabbits tread so lightly that their tracks don't affect anyone else? 4. My friend told me once that she spits in every new river she approaches, so that in that splash of saliva, a piece of her joins with the water and floats downstream. Maybe the drops meet in a lake after tracing their way through watersheds. Maybe they all pursue their own paths, riding through estuaries to catch on a riverbank. 5. I wish to leave a soft imprint on the world, not a lonely echo. I wanted to end my book on that note because I felt that ending it on an echo would continue be thinking about the book. My overall goal with this book was to write about the connection between humans and nature in a way that was unique and could reach whoever was reading it, or at least reach them in some way. I didn't really intend to answer any questions. I probably asked a lot more questions within my poems than give any answers. But I think questioning what's around you is the first step to understanding anything. I guess on the note of questions, does anyone have questions?
Mattie?
Yeah.
Do you want to just stop sharing your screen for a minute and we can see you? Yeah. I just want to thank you so much for this extraordinary reading. I have to just mention quickly that last week we had another poetry reading of a group of 10 poets who have made a living with their poetry, more or less, and hosted by the Connecticut Poet Laureate, Margaret Gibson, on a similar theme, waking up to the earth, Connecticut poets in a time of global crisis. And I just, listening to your poems, you have a very similar point of reflection and close observation of this earth. And when I heard you read Your Love, it reminded me actually of the Connecticut Poet Laureate Margaret Gibson's poem, Irrevocable, where she likens the washing of her beloved's body after he died with the washing of earth. And I just thought it was just absolutely wonderful. So thank you. And we just encourage everyone who would like to either share a reflection or ask Mattie a question to unmute themselves at this point and, share your thoughts.
Mattie.
Yeah.
I'm Mattie's aunt from Arkansas, and I've watched her all her life living and loving nature. I'm a master naturalist, and she has taught me more. Like the water pennies, I never knew about that. We've studied the liverworts. She cares about our nature and our connection with the earth. I didn't even get into this connection until 2013, and she has taught me so much. Thank you, Mattie. I love your book.
Thank you, Diane.
Hi, Mattie. It's Susanna.
Hi.
And I'm so glad I was able to join in and listen today. I loved your, I loved your working with different forms with your poetry, and I think the different forms you chose really worked well with what you were doing. I loved and I loved the illustration you made for the Earth, the My Love poem. And I thought that was a great way of approaching it, as, speaking to the rest of us as this character. So, and I adored the poem for your brother. I thought that was just wonderful. And I felt that you brought him clearly to life for all of us and the kind of young person he is. And yeah. So, and I love the water pennies. I've never seen water pennies, so you taught me something about it. Do water pennies live up here? I haven't heard about them before.
Mm-hmm.
Aha. Have you seen some in our streams?
I haven't seen any in town, but I've seen them in Litchfield.
Cool. Excellent. Well, I hope maybe when we're out looking for testing salt, maybe we'll be lucky.
Yeah, I'll be looking.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I should say that we do have Mattie's book in the Norfolk Library collection. So anybody who wants to check it out, please do so. And it's obviously also for sale on Amazon. So if you would like to own your own copy, that's the place to go for that. So I don't know if there are any more comments. If anyone wants to pipe up or.
I want to say one more thing. I thought your cover was fantastic, really fantastic. So one more thing.
I loved the red. The red was the red. Is it a lobster? Lobster in the middle, just
a crawdad. A
crawdad. Ah, of course, a crawdad. How silly! You can tell I'm from have a place in Maine. I think about lobsters, not Arkansas. Eileen, so you unmute.
Oh,
there we go.
I don't think I can say too much. I think I'm going to cry, but so beautiful, Mattie. Really, thank you.
Thank
really,
you.
I feel it shows such maturity and such, you know, I just feel like the close observation of our natural world is so key to how we respond in this time to it. And you have demonstrated that you have had that very close connection and observation for probably your whole life. It's wonderful. Wonderful that you set it down and into print where we can all enjoy it. So if anyone there's nothing further, I think we'll bid adieu to everyone. And once again, thank Mattie so much for this program and for sharing your wonderful poems with us. And the photographs are, you know, equally, I love the pairing of the photograph with the poem. That's really very special.
Thank you.
Yeah. So thank you so much. Thanks to everyone.
Thanks, Mattie. Bye-bye.
Thanks for joining us.
You're the best.
Okay.
Good night, everybody.
Enjoy the rest of your time in Washington, Mattie.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone. Thanks for joining us.
Good night.